What, 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 what?
Okay. Please excuse that silly intro. I really wanted to capture the Macklemore thrift shop vibes when they scooter up to the thrift store in their heavy fur coats. I don't have one. I have to borrow my mother's. But this is what I'm actually wearing. I cannot wear that thick ass coat for the entirety of this video. I will be here for hours just trying to film this. So we are doing away with the coat, and to be completely transparent, I don't really feel great about how I look today right now. I spent an embarrassingly long time trying to figure out what I wanted to wear for this video, and then I decided on this, an outfit that I have worn for the third day in a row. And don't get me wrong, it's hella cute, but I'm like, I cannot expend the brain energy trying to figure out what to wear. So we're really struggling today. But we had to just power through and get this done. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so I'm actually going to adjust you. Please excuse. Okay. That's a little bit better. If you're watching this video, you have probably at some point before gone thrift shopping. I'd say the vast majority of people have patronized a thrift shop before at least once in their lives for some reason or another. I personally love thrift shopping. A lot of my friends love thrift shopping too. It's something that we like to do together. And a lot of my clothes actually now at this point in my life are thrifted. But before we get any further into the video, hi, welcome back or welcome. My name is Alyssa. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for spending this time with me. I usually, for the most part, make videos about fashion, and sometimes they're a little bit more video essay in style, like this one. So let's get into it. Today, I want to talk about the gentrification of thrift shopping that we have seen, the rise in popularity, and the kind of unknown, seedy underbelly of the thrift industry. Let's get into it.
What,
Thrift shopping has seen an increase in popularity over the past maybe like decade. As early as even 15 years ago, thrift shopping was still heavily stigmatized. It was not mainstream. It was something seen as for poor people. But recently, and I say recently in the general sense, attitudes have dramatically shifted to be more favorable in the way we look at thrift shopping. Many young people, especially I would say millennials and younger, have turned to thrift shopping or various other resale markets or platforms as their primary form of clothes shopping. I know I personally have, and that could be for many different reasons. A lot of it is environmental or economical, or it could just be because you want to try to find a unique piece that can't be found in I guess what's the opposite of thrift shopping? I guess it's like traditional mainstream brands. Now, when I first started scripting this video, I called the popularization and the subsequent price shift of thrift shopping gentrification. Gentrification is the process whereby the character of a poor urban area is changed by wealthier people, typically displacing current inhabitants in the process, or the process of making someone or something more refined, polite, or respectable. Usually it's used to describe neighborhoods or real estate, but in the more general sense, it means seeing an increased wealth in a specific area or space. However, if we really want to be again, what's the word? If we really want to be pedantic about it, I don't think gentrification is the 100% correct word to use here. It's a little bit misleading, and the connotation of the word that I was going to address initially when I first came up with this idea is not the only power at play for the reasons why we have seen an increased price in thrift stores. Confused? Let me explain. At first, I placed a majority of the blame on resellers, like resellers on Depop, on Poshmark. There are even people on Instagram who just sell directly to the person. Again, I have been sitting on their script for a really long time. And so my thoughts and feelings and my evaluations about it have gone a lot like this. But don't worry. Don't worry, I will get much more into my convoluted thoughts and feelings later on in this video. Like I mentioned earlier, there has been an increase in thrift shopping due to a number of reasons. Main reason is economical. For the most part, I don't say always, but for the most part, thrift shopping is the cheaper option compared to shopping at what I will call traditional mainstream brands or stores. So basically, buying new. The second is for environmental or sustainability reasons. As we have seen the state of the world become what it is, and more young people especially become more aware of what is going on with the state of the world environmentally, we have become more conscious in wanting to do our part, not contributing to fast fashion, not wanting to contribute to the demand of new clothes. Third thing could be, again, like I briefly mentioned, seeking out individuality in what is now a huge mass market for what is perceived to be basically the same things. But first I want to talk a little bit about the evolution of thrift stores, the thrift shopping medium, the big chain stores that we all know today. Nicole Rudolph on YouTube actually does a wonderful job in a video going into the fuller history of the secondhand market more globally as well. I am just going to stick to the US market because that is what I know. But at least in the US, we have two major thrift store chains that I could think of off the top of my head and several smaller ones that I also am aware of. One of the first major thrift store chains that we all know and have seen around or been to is Goodwill. Goodwill is Methodist in origin. It was founded in 1902 by Reverend Edgar J. Harris, who at the beginning actually collected home goods and clothes to mend and then resell in the aims of using those profits for charity. Nowadays, they earn billions of dollars annually in revenue as a nonprofit company. And I put that in quotes. They are still technically a nonprofit company, but I'll get into the quotes part in a little bit. But the second big chain that we know of is the Salvation Army. This one is Christian in origin, and it was founded much earlier in 1865 by a London minister, William Booth, to feed and rehabilitate the needy. Some of the smaller thrift stores that operate on a slightly different model, but also because they're smaller, aren't as ubiquitous as Goodwill and Salvation Army. Like before I moved to a big city for university, I didn't know these stores existed. But I'm talking about Plato's Closet and Buffalo Exchange. Again, much smaller in scale, and they work off of a buy from the consumer model. So you go in with your clothes, they will take a look, decide what they want to buy from you, that they will then resell on their sales floor. But this model then in turn makes the clothes from these specific stores a little bit more expensive than what you would find at just your regular like big box store, Salvation Army or Goodwill. And now in the digital age, we have seen a rise in the number of digital/online reselling platforms. ThredUp was founded in 2009 by James Reinhart to kind of be the middleman connector between the end consumer and the seller. So you can send in a package of your stuff for them to then resell. And again, kind of like Buffalo Exchange and Plato's Closet, you then get a cut of the profits. Depop was founded in 2011 as a mobile app only, whereas with ThredUp, you can go, there's like a desktop version. It's an actual website you can visit like on the computer. But they were founded in London. Vinted is a European app that has since launched in the US back in 2020, although it has definitely not gained the same amount of steam or popularity as apps like Depop or Poshmark, which segues me into introducing Poshmark as another app that was founded also in 2011 as a reselling platform. They're a little bit different than Depop because on Poshmark, you can sell things that aren't just clothes.
What?
But like I mentioned, thrift shopping has become mainstream only in the past decade or two, losing its stigma, becoming a more popular option for shopping, driven by the same concerns I have previously mentioned due to the high cost of traditional slash new retail, due to environmental and sustainability concerns, due to wanting to find cool, unique pieces. But then also there is the growing trend among traditional retailers to lower the quality of their clothes when you're buying them new. Fast fashion, of course, I always circle back to fast fashion, but fast fashion we know has notoriously been pretty low on the quality front. But fast fashion is not the only victim of the high cost, low quality trend we've been seeing. Whereas they should be going in the same direction, cost and quality, they have gone in opposite directions. Forbes magazine reports that for the first time in over 15 years, besides COVID's 2020, the personal goods market declined by 2% with little relief in sight. The Chinese market, which makes up a huge source of revenue for the luxury market, and the younger demographic of shoppers have abandoned luxury goods due to increased costs and stagnated or even decreased quality. But that's what I mean when I say the fast fashion market of the fashion industry is not the only area that has seen the whole increased price, decreased quality. The luxury goods market is also guilty of this. And considering the prices they're asking consumers to pay, you would think they would have the decency to reflect those prices in the quality. But no, it is the same or worse. So as any economics class would tell you, when demand increases, so too can the prices, even if the supply is plentiful. And trust me, the supply is definitely plentiful within specifically the thrift industry. And we'll get into the issue that poses later, the huge supply we see in the thrift industry or the resale market. But I think it's more a matter, or I guess it's more like an issue of there being good supply, of the good supply being plentiful, which often, in my opinion, there is not. Anyone who has gone thrifting knows how much time it takes. It's really a whole event. At least that's the way it is for my friends and me, because the thrift market is kind of just one of everything. You have to really take the time, dedicate yourself to flipping through so many different garments to find one thing that you like and that fits you. A lot of the time I ask, why was this made? Who bought this? But you know what? Fashion is subjective. That's the beauty of fashion. I get it. But this is just the curse now of there being no one specific trend that people are beholden to. Anyone can wear anything. Now, it's hard to say when exactly this happened. But with the magnifying glass trained on thrift shopping, with more consumers interested in it, with more customers not flooding the market, but entering the market, with this new increased demand, with this new increased accessibility, enter in the reseller. Resellers have somehow found their way to enter into virtually every single market. But the resellers will be the one to go into the physical stores, into the brick and mortar stores, do the work, take the time to sift through all of the stuff, find the pieces they think are valuable or cool, and sell them on other platforms. It can come in a variety of different shapes. You can go onto the apps like Depop, Poshmark, Vinted. I have even seen thrifted style bundles, people selling their services on Etsy. And trust me, I understand the reason and the value of the reseller. They put in the work. They cut through all the bullshit in the stores. They have to sift through everything, flip through all of the hangers to find the pieces that are worth buying. And yeah, I'm putting it in air quotes because, like I said, style, fashion, tastes are subjective. So there's that, but also I think this whole mindset of finding only the things that are cool to buy and then resell inherently then devalues everything left in the brick and mortar thrift stores like they weren't good enough. Like they're not worth buying. And I don't disagree. Okay, personally, again, I say, I think there's a lot of crap to sort through that I don't want, both in store and online. And again, that's all my own style preference. But some of these resellers then, I guess, resell the things they buy at a steep price. And this is the part that leaves a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. I know not everyone is like that. And as is always the case, or most of the time the case, the people who do the bad things are the ones creating the bad reputation for everyone else when everyone is not like that. Like I mentioned earlier, I spent a very, very long time sitting on this script trying to think about what I wanted to say. So let's address that now because I changed up, well, mainly this specific part of the script a lot of times. At first, I placed too much blame. I placed the majority of the blame for the increased prices that we've seen in thrift stores on the resellers. I thought all of these resellers are now flooding the market, vastly increasing the demand, which inflates in these thrift stores' minds that they can justify raising the prices. And you know what? Don't get me wrong. I would also personally love to be a reseller for multiple reasons. One, I love thrift shopping. I love finding cool pieces that I think other people would love. I want to rehome these pieces that could be destined for the landfill, give them a second chance at life, have my own thrift or consignment shop, like a physical brick and mortar store. That would be cool. Yeah, that'd be fun. Not me running through my own dream scenario. And shameless self-plug, I actually do have my own Depop account. However, just when I thought resellers were out of the clear, just when I thought, oh, I'm blaming them too much, I was proved wrong this summer through a situation that involved an international trip and one green tank top. Let me explain. I recently posted and went on an international vacation. I went to Europe for 3 weeks with my partner. With me, I packed and took like 4 tank tops. 3 of them were all they're all the same style. Target earlier in the summer came out with a whole summer collection, and they came out with different colored tank tops in the same shape, but they had different embroidered little logos here on the chest. Okay, I got a white one, I got a tan one with a little shrimp embroidered on it, and I got a green one with a lime embroidered on it. I folded them all and packed them all in one little specific corner of my suitcase. Okay, when we were in France, we stayed in a shared Airbnb. When we were in Madrid, we stayed in an Airbnb. When we got to Barcelona, we stayed in a hotel. And it was halfway through our Barcelona stay that I noticed that my tank top was missing. Yes, missing. I knew that I packed it, and I knew that I hadn't taken it out of my suitcase the entire trip. So I was confused about how I could have lost it, but knowing that I packed it and that I hadn't taken it out, I thought, okay, someone from the hotel has stolen my green tank top. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking,
Alyssa, why are you being so freaking crazy?
And you might also be thinking, why would some random member of the staff come into a random room and steal a random tank top out of someone's bag? Like, don't you think they would steal something valuable like your passport or your money? And that's where I say no. That would be too obvious. That's too valuable. That would raise the flags, the red flags, too quickly. But you know the Sherlock Holmes quote, when you have ruled out the impossible, whatever left, however improbable, is the solution? Yeah. That's why I say, I think one of the staff who came in to clean up the room stole my tank top. This story is making me sound insane, but I have a point with this.
You think I don't hear myself? You think I like sounding like a total bitch?
So then when I came home in desperation, I thought, okay, I know the summer season has just ended. Also, I tried to buy it again from Target, but they were all out of my size. But let me look, what are the chances that someone has already, only a couple of months later, turned around and decided to resell the same green tank top in the same size? But this is where I get angry. I bought these tank tops half off for $2.50. Their original price was $5. I got them on sale half off for $2.50 each. What prices do I see listed by these resellers? Everything over $5, okay? I see prices like $80. I see prices like $8 with $8 in shipping and handling. So you're telling me a tank top that is barely out of season, the season just ended, and it's now being resold for over the original asking price? In some cases, like $80. That is ludicrous behavior. And that is where my gripe comes from with resellers. Who said that's okay? But I am getting too angry over this. Some might say irrationally angry, but you know what? Like I said, I was really freaking excited to have that tank top. And then it was snatched away from me.
What?
So that is why I have gone back and forth so much in trying to decide how much blame to put on the resellers. Yeah, this particular situation in trying to find my tank top again infuriated me. But when we get to the debate of is the general rise in prices we've seen in thrift stores due to gentrification or not, again, it's very multifaceted. There are a lot of different factors at play. Because of the boom in thrift shopping, because of the increased demand, a lot of stores have in turn raised their prices. Now, I am not on social media. The people in my life know that I'm chronically offline, so I don't see what people post on Instagram or TikTok. I just get all of that information secondhand reposted. The number of videos I have seen of secondhand places like Goodwill blatantly marking up the price of their goods over the original asking price from the retail store.
Okay, look at this really good thrifting deal I found. Look at this dress, okay? I was like, oh, this is kind of cute. And look, it's new with tags, okay? So it was $17. You can buy it from Value Village for $11 for $10.99, but you could have bought it from the original store for $6.
And you can see how much Goodwill has decided to mark up the price as their like resale price. I'm already wary of Goodwill and other huge chain thrift stores. Even though they say they're nonprofit, I'm still very skeptical because they're still huge chain corporations with C-suite executives that get paid in the hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. That should be going to the nonprofit you supposedly support. Now, I'm no dummy. I understand, the economics of supply and demand, but not in the thrift setting, okay? Because thrift shopping was born out of the people who needed to buy these things at a lower cost. The people who still thrift out of pure economic necessity are being priced out. Okay, sorry, I had to change my camera's battery. I think I'm kind of like chasing my own tail around here, but I hope my point is getting across that the people who have always been here out of pure economic necessity are being priced out because, yeah, it's kind of crazy how much the prices have risen over the past, I don't know, like a couple of years. There's a Yahoo Finance article titled How Goodwill is Becoming More Expensive Than Walmart and Target, which has testimonies from people comparing thrift store prices to retail prices. A lot of the times they are very similar, or they're even higher than the prices at the big box stores. Because again, it's the thrift stores themselves exploiting this market and interested in the increased profits when they spend no money on supply. Okay, that's the crazy part. They get all of their inventory for free. We donate our stuff to like Goodwill. They then turn it around and sell it for 100% profit. So that's why I ask, what need do they have to raise the prices so much? And here is where I contradict myself even further. I know. What is freaking happening in this video? Trust me, I'm asking myself that same question, okay? In doing research for this video, I found a couple of articles. One article from a website called The Vintage Seeker, titled, If Everything is Expensive at the Thrift Stores, It's Not Because of Resellers. The author of this article also blames corporate greed and the greed of thrift stores for the increased prices. Another article from keytofashion.com opines her opinions about why thrift stores have increased their prices. I agree with one of the points she makes, and I disagree with another point she makes. She says one of the reasons why we've seen the increased prices is because there's more competition with online resellers, like all of these apps, like with thredUP. But if anything, this increased competition should drive down the prices all of these sellers ask the consumers to pay. But the other point she makes is that even though more people are thrift shopping, even more people are donating, and they're donating in bigger quantities, where it is the people who work at the thrift stores who then are tasked with sorting through everything, finding the things that are still in good enough condition to be resold, which a lot of it actually isn't. They are the ones doing the work, and now they have even more work because there's more stuff being resold. So then maybe it's not the resellers gentrifying the thrifting space. Maybe they're not the ones to blame for the increased prices, but they are still, I don't know, kind of like second rate compared to the bigger issue at hand, which is general inflation / corporate greed and overconsumption. And you know what? Doesn't everything in the end circle back to corporate greed, inflation, and overconsumption? Inflation, however, I think is a pretty sorry excuse for, at the very least, these huge chain thrift stores like Goodwill and Salvation Army to use as a reason why they are raising their prices. It reminds me of the luxury goods market I mentioned earlier. Prices are rising and you claim it's due to inflation when I know what your profits are and the quality of your goods is stagnant or worse. So I'm extremely skeptical of using general inflation as an excuse for these rising prices at thrift stores specifically when their only overhead is labor and rent. There's a local thrift store that's very hip and trendy, and you know what? It perfectly caters to the demographic of the area, don't get me wrong, but they try to resell the exact same Target tank top that I have. A different one. It was like the beige one, but the exact same one that I have for $10. Let me reiterate to you, that tank top was originally worth $5. Why are they selling something from Target for double the original retail price? That's crazy. And it was stained front and back. So you see what I'm saying? Yes, about resellers and thrift stores just hiking up the prices of their goods by, in my opinion, pretty unjustifiable amounts. But I am done complaining, okay? I'm done complaining about my tank tops, okay? We are going to get into the seedy underbelly of the thrift and donating kind of market.
What?
I put in my scripts, let me read this straight from the screen here. But even the noble act of thrifting, like nonprofits funding charitable acts and your actions being sustainable, does not absolve the act of donating clothes from guilt. It's a weird sentence, I know. Let me fully explain. It is here that we dive into the dark world behind the thrift store. We're kind of like lifting the veil a little bit and getting into, again, I say, kind of like the seedy underbelly of the thrift industry. I kind of touched on this earlier, but so much, the vast majority really of the stuff that gets donated to thrift stores, especially the huge chains, barely even makes it to the sales floor. The rest of it gets discarded. It gets thrown away, it gets incinerated, or it gets shipped off to third world countries. Goodwill alone receives billions of clothing donations annually, and that's just one of the thrift store chains. That's not even taking into account like Salvation Army. And a lot of it, again, like I very briefly mentioned, is in too poor of a condition to sell. So they just have to get rid of it in some way, shape, or form. Now, when I tried to do my research on this, estimates varied greatly, but it was something like only 10 to 20% of donated clothes actually gets resold. The rest of it gets exported. It gets discarded as waste, or it actually gets sold to different industries for them to shred and reuse. Some of it gets used in commercial purposes like with insulation, or they get turned into rags. Although that last option is the minority. So it was really hard to find consistent information, but the Washington Post reports that traditional Goodwill locations sell 40 to 50% of their donations. The rest of it is then carted off to their outlet or bin locations. I've actually never been to a Goodwill bin, but that's where the rest of their stuff goes, where there then at least like 30% on average is sold by weight. The leftovers from there are then sold nationally to salvage businesses that can do pretty much whatever they want. They often work globally and ship exports overseas. But as I learned while I was getting my fashion merchandising degree, these mass imports of clothes has severely disrupted the local economies of these countries that take them in, their textile industries, their own local fashion industries. A BBC News article cited a German study done back in 2006, which included how Ghana suffered a decline in textile output by 50% between 1975 and 2000. Zambia's textile industry saw decreased employment by over 50% between the 1980s and 2002, which I was surprised when I found the article and the study, how far back this went. Some of these African countries have over the years tried to fight back to save their local economies. In the mid to late 2010s, multiple East African countries banded together and announced bans or tariffs against secondhand imports, but a lot of them rescinded those after pressure from the United States, of course, and pulled them all back. I think one of the only, or if the only country who stood firm on these bans was Rwanda. Now, it's not just the US, China and Europe, both EU and non-EU Europe are guilty of mass exports to third world countries around the world. What? But why is this happening? You know that metaphor of the frog who gets put in the slow boiling water and it doesn't jump out until it's too late? Yeah, Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling now. Maybe I'm being a little bit pessimistic, but yeah, we're definitely at a tipping point, and I feel like we're going to fall over the edge, hung by a polyester noose of our own making. YouTuber Katie Robinson has a video called "Our Obsession with Fast Fashion Has Ruined Thrifting," where she briefly talks about how the landscape of thrift shopping has changed due to the rise in fast fashion brands seen at thrift stores. Something I have seen firsthand, and something we all should have seen coming. The first time I saw a Shein article of clothing at my local thrift store, what is the cliche? I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. And while buying secondhand is still better than buying new, I am still extremely reluctant to buy from these brands like Shein or like Target's Wild Fable line, because I am very skeptical of the quality. But then I also know if there are so many other people out there who think like I do, and I'm not the only one, then doesn't that also just leave the fast fashion garbage at the thrift stores to get piled up, unbought, and then shipped out and exported? Fast fashion now and fast fashion back in maybe like the 2000s is vastly different. I think we have seen an exponential decline in the quality of clothes even by fast fashion retailers. For example, I still have a green button-down collared blouse from Forever 21 that I got back in high school. I have worn it many times. It's been through the wash many times, and it still holds up. But I know if I got the same thing today from like Shein, I don't know that it would withstand the same amount of time without breaking down. But we can't forget our current voracious appetite for clothes as a huge contributing factor. Overconsumerism and cheap clothes have made us kind of like, the no face character in Spirited Away. We just want more and more and more, and we are just mindlessly gobbling it up. And it's such a hard cycle to break. I have been guilty of this. It's still a mindset I am actively trying to get myself out of. It is just the consumerism that has been pounded into our minds, making us think we need more and more and more. And I understand these mass overconsumption habits are fueled by the extremely cheap prices. Why not spend $2 on a tank top? And I would like to put out there that yes, thrift shopping is definitely the more sustainable and ethical way to satiate that appetite of wanting something new. But with the levels seen on social media of like thrift hauls, it still feels like overconsumption. Hot take, okay, hear me out. It can be argued that thrift shopping aids and abets overconsumption because it feels like you're getting more of a bargain, because you are able to get more stuff with the same amount of money. Does that make sense? Do you see kind of what I'm saying? Hot take, I know. And again, it's disheartening to see so much fast fashion in thrift stores nowadays. How quickly we've seen the tides turn, I think, because in my opinion, it's just an indication of how little people care for their clothes, how short of a time they keep the clothes. I don't want to admit this, but I will. Even a vast majority of my own family members don't care. They don't give a shit about the issues that I care about. It's the out of sight, out of mind mentality for them that is kind of in the minds of most Americans, coupled with the sort of false sense of gratification for doing the right thing of donating if we think everything can be donated. And that's kind of what people do. But in some ways I ask, how can I blame these people for thinking and acting the way they do when it's so accessible, it's so cheap, it's so easy to fall down the rabbit hole of constantly wanting more and more and more, I mean, maybe practice a little self-control. But you know what? I am not here to preach or berate my own family, okay? ThredUp has actually come out and said they no longer pay out sellers for Shein brand clothes so as to actively discourage people from shopping there. And I think that's a great idea because of the popularity of reselling apps and platforms. Other brands have jumped on the bandwagon. Banana Republic opened up their own like flagship reselling store in 2024 that sells their own pieces vintage. Urban Outfitters created Nuuly, which resells its own brands. And they also they have the service model of renting clothes too. And H&M actually also jumped on the bandwagon and they opened up their own resale store in Soho, New York. Isn't that crazy? In conclusion, I am still a huge advocate for thrift shopping. Of course. I also respect the nature of most resellers who are trying to give a second or third or fourth life to an article of clothing that was destined for the incinerator or the landfill or to be shipped off to a third world country. Whatever we can do to prevent clothes from simply going to waste, right? And you know what? If people want to pay for the middleman to do the work of like finding the diamond in the rough, then more power to them. Like I said, I personally think it would be really fun to open up my own like thrift consignment store to curate my own pieces. Yeah, I think that'd be really fun. But I feel like this evolution of thrift shopping is also an indicator of our relentless appetite for stuff that we're now just getting at a cheaper price. Regardless, like I said, any thrift shopping is better than buying new, and while prices at thrift stores have definitely and noticeably risen, it's still, again, for the most part, the more affordable alternative compared to buying new from traditional retailers. It's also the more fun and rewarding option, in my opinion at least. But there is no doubt that the mass overconsumption of clothes, especially new clothes, and the throwaway mentality that so many of us have has adversely affected third world countries. I don't know how else to conclude this video. I think my main point really is just that thrift shopping is multifaceted. There's a lot more to the industry than meets the eye. It's still got its own problems, a lot of problems that a lot of people don't know or talk about, but it's still one of the best ways to combat fast fashion, overconsumption of new items, to not contributing to the demand for new items or fast fashion. But yeah, those are my thoughts on thrift shopping, the evolution of thrift shopping, the rising prices and the shift in gentrification that we've seen, the seedy underbelly. We covered a lot of topics today. But thank you for sticking around. This was a long one. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.